Hey Emma,
Yes, Madelyn.
what's Friedrich Nietzsche's favorite video game?
Wow, I wonder.
Beyond Good and Evil! Hello, and welcome to Talk This.
That wasn't even a joke.
I'm sorry, that's not the name of the podcast.
It might as well be. Talk this. That's not even a joke.
Hello, and welcome to Talk This, colon.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I guess it's not a colon, it's an exclamation point.
It is.
Oops.
It could work with a colon, too. It's grammatically correct.
Well, no. I mean, sort of. Is Talk This an independent clause?
Well, it's a title and a subtitle, right?
Yeah, I know. I was getting a little finicky with it. I was just teaching colons to people this week.
In case you were wondering, we are now a grammar podcast.
Welcome! Today we'll be talking about dangling participles. Tearing down her street, Emily ran away from the tornado. Well, Emily wasn't tearing down her street.
She might have been, though.
Right? You have to...
That
context
works.
is key.
Of course you would want to run away from the tornado tearing down the street.
Anyway, really we're a video game podcast. We'll make the switch to grammar in 2019.
It's on our list of to-dos, along with all those show notes.
Okay, the more you dare me to do them, the more that I'm gonna do them.
That's good!
We have to talk about format. This
Okay.
is boring podcast material right now.
Anyway, in case you didn't know, we're talking about Beyond Good and Evil, and also Monster Hunter World, which you might not have guessed from the joke.
It'd be pretty good if you did. Pretty solid guesswork if you got that from the joke.
Or you just listened to one of our recent episodes. That's also possible.
Did we even remember it last week?
Yes.
Wow. A truly special episode. But no, Clickbait Boyfriend insisted that I mention Friedrich Nietzsche. So I just wanted to get it out of the way.
Yeah, so, fun fact about Beyond Good and Evil. They wanted to call it Between Good and Evil, but couldn't for some reason. I don't remember the full story behind that anecdote. I think maybe just the people was like, that's a lame title. Make it
I was about to
Beyond.
say, Between Good and Evil is a boring title. Are you saying neutral?
Yeah, basically. True neutral.
True neutral. The game.
That would be a game for sure.
Would it, though?
Some sort of thing.
Like, would it be a game? Or would it just be you sit there watching television that, like, you don't really care about?
Anyway, Beyond Good and Evil came out in 2003. It's an action-adventure video game from Ubisoft, specifically from Michel Ancel, who created the Rayman series.
It's from Ubisoft France, which I think the anthropomorphic animals, like, that feels like a French thing.
Is it? Is it a French
I just feel like
thing?
there's a lot of, like, animated movies and stuff that comes out of France that are, like, anthropomorphic animals.
I guess so. There's the one that was My Life as a Zucchini. That was a French film. That's not animals, though. And I don't think they were actually anthropomorphic vegetables. And I'm sorry, that was a tangent.
All right, Zucchini, continue.
And
by the way, I'm your host, Madelyn.
I'm your other host, Emma.
We're, like, ready to talk this week.
We just jumped right in. And it was originally supposed to be part of a trilogy, but Beyond Good and Evil 2 is probably going to come out on the PlayStation 5 / whatever. So.
Well, it's currently slated for the PS4, but yeah.
We'll see. Sony's skipping next year's E3, so I think that means that they're going to do their own console launch announcement.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yep. Because they'll want to announce it, like, on their own terms, as opposed to having to, like, compete with everybody else. That's my guess, anyway.
Emma, video game analyst.
That's me.
Analyzing trends in the video game industry and synthesizing them into podcast material.
But anyway, Beyond Good and Evil was very critically acclaimed and did really bad commercially. Like most critically acclaimed games. I mean, not most.
Most of the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Anyway, Beyond Good and Evil, if you haven't played it, I haven't, because, believe it or not, in 2003, I was not particularly plugged in to the indie PlayStation 2 scene.
Hey, it's on your PlayStation 3.
Is it really?
Mm-hmm.
The HD came out for PS3?
I played it on PS3, so it should still be on there.
Oh, you downloaded it?
Yeah.
Like, it's not just that, like, it's available for PS3, it's literally on my console.
Yes, it's on your console.
Well, that's embarrassing.
Back in the days when PlayStation had enough storage for several downloaded games. Ah, the good old days.
The bygone days. Well, that's embarrassing. I should have played it in well, no, I shouldn't have. Don't do that, Madelyn. You're playing a dozen games.
Yeah, it's like a game with a narrative, so you can't really, like, start it and, like, just put it down. That would be like your 10th game to add to your roster.
What's one more at this point?
I guess that's true. But it has sort of like a, not open world, but like proto-open world structure. It's third person, and you play as Jade, who is a photographer / like orphanage looker after. I don't really know what
that's the technical term.
So not only do you attack, you can also use your camera for certain things, like to find out information when you're snooping around enemy bases. The basic setting is it's in the future. It's 2435 specifically. You're on a different planet, and it's under siege by aliens called the Doms. I think that's how you say it, but it looks like Domsy. It's been a while since I played it. But they abduct people / drain their life forces and make them into slaves and stuff. And there's also a military dictatorship on the planet called the Alpha Sections. And an underground resistance movement, which you become a part of.
Because the word on the street is that the Alpha Sections are actually, despite the fact that they say that they're fighting the Doms / Domsy, are actually kind of secretly aiding them under the table.
Yeah.
Anyway, the most exciting part about the game, from me, someone who has never played it, is that you live with your uncle, Paige, is that right?
Yeah, Paige.
Who is an anthropomorphic pig.
Yes, he is. And he's also got like some sort of accent. I don't remember what it is.
Of course he does.
Feels right.
And it's just like, he's just a pig. Like, he just is. I appreciate that kind of whimsy in my games.
Yeah. It's got, I think it's mostly just, I think there are other anthropomorphized animals. I can't remember specifically what ones are in the first one. Because I don't remember any anthropomorphized monkeys in my time playing the first game, but I know that's like a major character in the prequel right now is a monkey. Yeah, but there are definitely other kinds of animals besides just pigs. Pigs are just the ones I remember most clearly.
I mean, pigs are pretty striking. So
they are.
That seems.
And he's not even
fair.
like a cute pig. He's like a real
He's
looking.
An ugly pig.
Yeah, like an actual pig, not like a piglet. Like a big hulking, grown-up pig. He's
grown. I mean, it would be inappropriate for him to be a piglet because he's a grown. I was gonna say a grown man, but a grown boar. Anyway, I feel like this is the kind of game that is probably only more relevant now, given that it's about a journalist uncovering the dark secrets of her government. It seems like it could only be, like, more relevant 15 years later.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And, like, okay, so, like, I thought this was cool. They've cited, like, the kind of different, like, influences they brought in creating this game. On the one hand, we have, like, the United States reaction to, like, 9/11 and living in a post-9/11 world. On the other hand, and, in some of these, maybe not so different, the Miyazaki universe.
Mm-hmm. I mean, Porco Rosso is a Miyazaki movie, so...
Wow, if I had made Porco Rosso, I would be upset that I'm not getting any royalties.
You can't put a copyright on anthropomorphized pigs.
Why not? Sure you can.
Can't. But interestingly, it was shown, the game is a lot different than it was originally intended to be, because it was shown at the 2002 E3, and people hated it. Apparently, it was a lot more like Ico, which is from the guy who did Shadow of the Colossus and Last Guardian. We did The Last Guardian on the podcast a while ago, but it was more like artistically ambitious and interesting, quote unquote. But it was changed a lot to be more appealing overall.
They also aged Jade up, is what I heard. She was originally a teenager, and they were like, we have to make her strong. Which, I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
LOL, back when, E3 mattered.
It still kind of matters. There's just so many things now.
Still, just saying. Can you imagine someone announcing something at E3 2019, and because of the reaction it received, making major changes?
Maybe. I mean, any place where you publicly show your game, you're looking for feedback. So I'm sure they make changes based on the feedback they get.
No, sure, of course.
Maybe not as radically revised as this one was, but...
Well, I still think that's I like hearing about sort of the development process of games, so I think that's fascinating. Reading about this gameplay, it struck me as basically the way you're supposed to play this game is how I play Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Namely that I just go around and take photos of things and occasionally fight stuff. So I think that would, my play style would mesh well.
I guess you have, there are goals in terms of your photos in Breath of the Wild, but generally when you take photos in the game, you're, doing, investigative reporting, as opposed to just, what's this thing? Let me take a photo and put it in my dictionary, or
what
whatever.
A weird concept for, an action-adventure game. You're a journalist!
You know what? Plenty of horror games do it, so why not action-adventure, right?
No, I know, and now that I say it, I'm Indiana Jones is, a archaeologist professor, right? So it sort of comes from that line of nerd heroes. But still, it's funny when you talk about it. It's you're a journalist, and you fight aliens.
Yeah.
It's an interesting pitch to have to make to your studio.
It is, you're right. And Ubisoft seemed to, not know what to do with it in the end. Another game we covered on the show, Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time, also came out around this time, which is also from Ubisoft, and they seem to mostly focus on that game as opposed to Beyond Good and Evil. I mean, on the face, it is certainly a lot more marketable.
I don't know. I feel like if this game came out now, right? If this game came out now, it would be huge.
I mean, that's why they're making Beyond Good and Evil 2, which seems a lot different than Beyond Good and Evil, to be fair. But that's why the creator is getting the chance to make something like this again.
So I wanted to talk to you about something about Beyond Good and Evil 2 that I have mixed feelings about. You've heard about their partnership with Hit Record, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for people who are not aware of this, Hit Record, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's crowdsourced production company, basically. It's a cool idea. It's a cool site, right? You get to upload your creative stuff, and they have all these prompts and stuff, and it's cool. It's a cool site. But they have partnered with Ubisoft to have people submit ideas through Hit Record of music, of murals, of character design, pretty much anything you can have in a game, it seems to me, that they might incorporate. And if they do incorporate it, you'll be paid, right? They're not just doing a contest where people are submitting and it's just the pleasure of being honored, right? They are going to pay people.
Yeah.
So that's, one step. But it feels a little shady to me.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of, like, how easy is it to... Well, it seems shady and dangerous. Just, like, how easy would it be to accidentally rip off somebody's work, or on purpose rip off somebody's work and not pay them?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's great. I don't think it's a great idea. I sort of understand the motive behind it. Like, it's in some at some point they've said like it's going to be like online multiplayer, so it's like bringing you into the experience in all sorts of different ways, right? Like I can understand that impetus, and I think the fact that it's on like an actual program, you're not just like emailing Ubisoft with your stuff, you're putting it on something that actually does this thing for different companies and different purposes. So there's that. The pricing model of hit record is a little weird anyway. Like you say like how much you think you should get from like a piece of artwork that you collaborated on together, right? And then you dispute that amount or say like I think this guy should get 10%, not 5% because he did more work than he's saying or something like that, or vice versa. So there's a whole complicated process that goes into like the payment methods. And they did a really bad job explaining what was going to happen with it at the E3 where they announced it. And I think the pool of money that they initially laid out is far too little. I haven't really looked at it much since the controversy around E3, just because there hasn't been much news about Beyond Good and Evil 2 in general since then. Yeah. So, like, I understand the idea behind it. I just think that, I mean, it's something that nobody's done before, so, you know, there's always the worry that they're going to be kind of sloppy with it, because they don't know what they're doing.
Like, it's definitely a cool way to get people excited about the game and to get this kind of creative class talking about it and promoting it and thinking about it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So...
I mean, there's also the idea that, like, you know, there's all these different planets and different cultures, so theoretically, if you bring lots of different artwork and stuff from different cultures, like, you get something that might actually resemble, like, a melting pot of outer space, right? As opposed to just your workers working on it.
Sure. But at the same time, if video game workers were unionized or had any kind of workplace protections, this kind of crap wouldn't go down.
What, like this idea?
I mean, I feel like...
If anything, it's creating less work for them.
It is creating less work for them, but it's also, like, doesn't this take away, like, one person's job, at least? Right?
I guess, but you add a job for someone who has to go through all this.
I guess that's true. I don't know. It just seems like... I don't like the way that it's... It feels like it's undercutting people who would, like, actually be working at the company on a salary and saying, like, oh no, like, we can outsource your work. Like, we don't need you, we could pay them less.
I hadn't seen it like that. I think that's a fair way to see it. I honestly believe that the people who came up with this, like, did not think about any of these things beforehand and only had good intentions about it. But there are a lot of issues with it that they probably just, like, they brainstorm and they're like, oh, that's a great idea, put it on the board. And then they didn't, like, bullet point it or anything, you know?
I mean, it's a brilliant marketing scheme. You know, it's a brilliant marketing scheme. If it came from their PR department, like, kudos to them.
That would actually make sense. They came from their PR department and they didn't think about it. Or rather, their marketing team, because those are two different things.
Yeah. Excuse me. You would know.
PR department would probably been like, stop! No.
It's just, I feel like they're pushing it to the people who are most likely to interpret it the way that I'm interpreting it. You know what I mean? These people that are kind of freelance artists who are already feeling like a lot of the time their work is undervalued and they're getting ripped off and people are sharing their work without compensating them. I feel like are the people that would be most likely to interpret this cynically.
I mean, they're getting paid.
Well, maybe.
They are. There is a pool of money. I think it's too small.
No.
But I'm not there is a pool of money for them.
I'm not saying that no one is getting paid. I'm just saying the vast majority of people that submit stuff are not getting paid.
Sure, but that's the case with any job, to be fair.
I know. I know. It just feels a little bit different when it's on this kind of like freelance level. Anyway, it leaves a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. It seems like the way that they were going to do this needed to be more clearly defined, and just kind of putting it out to the internet as a whole, basically, it feels like there's no way.
I'm also not sure, like, if you make an artwork and submit it and it's not accepted, I'm not sure what the, like, I don't know if you can submit it elsewhere after that or not.
Right? That's the thing that feels a little slimy.
But again, I have done no research on it because I wasn't interested in helping. Right? So, I don't know that because I haven't looked. That doesn't mean that they haven't said.
You don't want to submit the voice track of you crying like a baby?
You know, I could add it to something. It would really, like ambient noise. Just like thousands of my track of baby crying. You know what? I'll submit that. Just wait. They'll accept it.
They might. You could be a meme.
Yeah, I'd be a future meme. Nothing like thousands of baby crying. Honestly, 1,000 baby challenge for real.
You were the one who was telling me not to talk about that.
God, it's lodged in my brain now, so...
Oh, man. Yeah, honestly, if somebody tries to create, like, future memes to submit, that will probably get accepted.
Yeah, that's brilliant. If you're making a future world, you gotta think about the future memes.
I'm excited about this. I hope there are memes.
Also, fun fact, speaking of no news about Beyond Good and Evil, gameplay reveal is set to take place on December 10th.
I saw that.
Wow.
I was researching.
They showed, like, real, like, crap alpha footage at some conference. I don't remember what. Maybe it was E3 also. I was not under the impression that it was even close to, like, having gameplay, honestly. But I guess it is.
Everything I read about it is like, this seems very ambitious.
That's why I think it's going to end up being a next-gen title.
And do you think Beyond Good and Evil 3 will ever come out?
Well, I think this is a lot different than what was originally envisioned for Beyond Good and Evil 2, because it's a prequel.
That's true, yeah. Supposedly, it's probably going to be about a younger Paige. But they've also been saying that, like, Jade is the villain, which I don't really understand.
I don't think it's actually Jade, based on complicated endgame spoilers for Beyond Good and Evil.
I've already read this. You can probably spoil a 15-year-old game.
Okay. Spoilers, in case you want to play it. But at the end of Beyond Good and Evil, it's discovered that, Jade is, like, actually...
She's a vessel, okay? So the Doms have this high priest who's, like, their leader, and people, like, try to steal his power or his soul or some heebie-jeebie BS, and put it into, like, another person so that he would starve, but now he's been, like, sucking life force from people instead. But Jade is the vessel of this soul.
Yeah. And she gets called by some other name a lot during the game that I cannot remember what it is, which is really embarrassing. But, like, every time she meets a Doms, they call her by a different name. So I think it's that person.
Interesting.
God, it's been a while since I played this, so I can't fully remember. But there was even, like, a whole trailer for Beyond Good and Evil 2 that looked like it was a sequel, that was announced, like, I don't know, in, like, 2008 or something, 2010, somewhere around there, that wasn't...
Well, it sounds to me like the end of the game kind of sets up a sequel, right? We have, like, this kind of, like, stinger with, like, Paige having, like, a Dom's spore on him, right?
Yeah.
So it does feel like they have to complete the trilogy kind of out of order.
Oh yeah, Shawnee. That's what it is.
Shawnee?
Yeah.
What a weak name.
Shauni.
Interesting.
But they call it that.
Well, I have one last thought on Beyond Good and Evil, I think, before we move on, unless you have more to say.
Here is what the wiki says about it. She is supposedly an entity called Shawnee that the Doms regard as the source of their power. Who and what Shawnee exactly is remains unclear, even after the ending credits of the first game. So I think that the Jade we're seeing in the trailers is that.
Interesting. All right, my final thought on this. How cool, like, I read in a review the game described as a space pirate opera, this new game. What a dope description is that?
I know, right?
Space
that's
pirate
what it looks
opera.
like. That's what it looks like from the trailers.
I'm obsessed.
I mean, everything about it looks cool. I'm just worried about, like, the online multiplayer aspect. As I always am.
It seemed like somebody had played a little bit of it. It seemed like maybe it was local co-op?
Or was it local co-op for the purposes of a
Yeah, you're right.
demo?
Speaking of online multiplayer, Monster Hunter World!
Yeah!
Yo, researching this game made me want to play it. Sort of.
Yeah, it looks fun. I've never played it. I've never gotten into any part of the Monster Hunter series, but it looks like a real good time.
I mean, the reviews I was reading of it were like, look, like, this is not like baby's first Monster Hunter game. Like, they're not pampering you. It's hard. You're gonna have to learn how to do this. Which made me feel a little bit, like, simultaneously nervous, but also, like, dared.
Yeah. So basically, what happens in Monster Hunter
That's what it sounds like.
You hunt monsters. You get good gear, you hunt the monsters, you get better gear, you hunt better monsters, you get better gear, you hunt better monsters. It goes like that, basically. You can either do it alone or through online services. You can hunt in groups of 4 players.
I was upset that there's no local co-op for this.
Yeah, I'm always upset when there's no local co-op.
Surprise, surprise. But I hate when games have online multiplayer and they don't have local. I mean, I'm sure it's completely different to build. But, like, it just makes me mad. Because I don't know anyone online to play with, other than maybe you.
Yeah. And then we have to pay for... I would have to actually pay for PlayStation Online, apparently.
Yo, it's only $40 right now.
A year?
I think so.
I was like, a month? That's way too much
for Black Friday. I think for Black Friday it's going down to $40, so maybe I'll snag it.
Wow. Apparently it's Capcom's best-selling game.
And fastest selling.
I mean, to be its best-selling, it would have to be fastest selling, right?
Thanks. I knew something and you're just like, lame.
No, you know stuff. That's great.
Oh my god. You're just making it worse.
But also, Monster Hunter stuff. They're making a Monster Hunter movie, and it looks terrible. Big news.
Spoiler.
Shocking everyone. It looks crappy.
Has anyone considered hiring maybe just, like, a different director than the one guy who always directs video game movies?
Is it the same guy who always directs video game movies?
It's Paul W.S. Anderson, who's also the mind behind the Resident Evil series and the Mortal Kombat movie.
Oh, that makes sense, because the lead in the Resident Evil series is also a main character.
Who is also his wife, fun fact.
Oh, jeez. So basically it's just the husband and wife making weird projects, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, that movie really, from what I've read, obviously I have not played Monster Hunter, but does not look to adhere to the admittedly kind of thin plot of the Monster Hunter series.
I mean, not even the plot. It doesn't, like, the aesthetic is gone.
Well, okay. 'Cause here's why. It seems to me like what is happening in the movie, and I've read a little bit about, is that there's a portal that opens between our world and the Monster Hunter world. And like, people from our world have to, like, go in.
Yeah. So it's like Marines, basically.
Yes.
3 Marines go into the Monster Hunter universe. I don't know. All we've seen are pictures of them in their Marine costumes, like, leaning up against a tank in very sandy areas. It's like, excuse me, where's, like, my crazy character customization? Right? Where's my fun weapons? I don't want to see people just, like, shooting monsters with AK-47s or whatever they've got. I don't want to see a tank in my Monster Hunter universe. I want to see swords. I want to see weird things that you spin around on. I want to see action.
Look, apparently, to give them the benefit of the doubt here, sort of, apparently this is Mr. Anderson's, like, a real passion project for him. He's been working with Capcom to make this movie for, like, 10 years. Like, since the games came out, basically, he's been a fan.
Well, they've been doing a terrible marketing job. Let me just tell you that.
Okay, well, when is it coming out? It's, like, probably forever away from coming out.
I don't know when it's coming out. What's her name? Mila Jovovich? Is that her name?
I think it's Jovovich, because I was trying to figure out how to pronounce it.
After, like, she posted, like, the pictures of just the standard army uniforms, she did post one with, like, one of the weapons from the game, being like, don't worry, there's weapons in it, but show me that first. I'm not interested in your setup, of your boring setup about American soldiers going through a portal. I just want to see fights. Like, what else do you want out of the Monster Hunter series, right?
So, again, I don't want to hate on it yet. I think it's probably, just in general, it's a good thing for video game movies to try to do something different from the game, right? Like, that's generally something that I think is probably a step in the right direction as opposed to in the wrong direction.
But not when there's no plot. Like, yes, invent a plot.
No, I know.
Don't change the aesthetic of the world.
I think probably they just weren't betting on, because until Monster Hunter World, these games did not have that much of an American audience. They were much more popular in Japan than they ever were in the West. Quite frankly, for the vast majority of non-video game plugged-in people, a movie called Monster Hunter does not immediately scream, this is a video game movie. It just screams, this is a movie.
Sure. I hate the setup, that's all.
I just don't think in sharing that image they realized how many people would, like, recognize that it was wrong.
Yeah, I guess so.
Anyway, back to the actual game, now that we've been talking about the movie for a while. Yeah, as Emma said, it's like your typical kind of questing game, right? You start out with very basic equipment and hunt sort of very small-scale monsters and gradually scale that up and get better loot and fight better monsters, etc., etc. And it's a game where, you know, it's not like a hack and slash kind of a game either. It's very light on tutorial. There are 14 different weapon types that are all, like, very different play styles. It's kind of confusing and challenging, and you have to do a lot of gathering different materials to build things. Which I was thinking sounded like kind of tedious and horrible, but it's nice. Like, there's always something to be doing. It seems very dense.
Yeah.
And I like gathering materials. Just usually I like to do it when I'm working on a farm.
It was mentioned briefly. I just watched a video from Playframe about the really detailed Red Dead Redemption 2 animations. And he was, like, saying, like, yeah, it looks cool, but dear God, does he have to pick up every individual thing and look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in, like, Monster Hunter World, like, in other games, like, they just sort of make a grabbing motion, and you have it, right? In Monster Hunter World, you don't even have to stop running. You don't even have to press a button to climb walls. Your hunter just does it automatically when you run into an incline.
I prefer that. That's been my major hiccup in playing Assassin's Creed, fun fact, is accidentally jumping off of walls. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, but it's, like, got that quick player convenience because you're going to be doing so much gathering, right, that you don't want to take millions of years to get that gathering done.
Also super cool is that this game has no loading screens. It's just, like, one big world.
That's becoming more and more common, I think.
I know, but it's still cool.
Yeah. I mean, but, you know, Breath of the Wild doesn't have loading screens.
Yes, it does when you go down into, like, a
shrine, right? You're right, it does. Does it have a loading screen, though? Does it say loading, or does it just, like, transition?
You know, it's been a little while. A long while. It feels like it's only been a little while, but it's probably been 6 months since I've played Breath of the Wild. So I don't really remember.
Yeah. But anyway, Nier Automata doesn't have loading screens, I can tell you that. A lot of games for a while have only really had loading screens, like, front-loaded, right? Like, Final Fantasy 15 has a ridiculously long loading screen at the beginning, and also in between chapters. But, like, if you're just walking through the world, there's no loading screens.
Well, your friendly PS3 owner over here thinks it's cool.
Yeah.
Take your time. Yeah, I will. Thanks, champ.
By this time next week, though, will you be a PS3 owner? I mean, you still will, but will you only be a PS3 owner?
Man, if I can get these Black Friday things to work for me, I'm nervous.
Nobody buy the $200 PlayStation Slims with Spider-Man, okay? Madelyn has to get it first.
Okay, please. I think Walmart is offering it online. I just don't know when it goes live, and I have to be ready. Also, we're at GameStop. I really need GameStop to have a deal, because I have my Super Mario Odyssey that I need to trade in.
Ooh.
I shouldn't say that on air. Thanks, Amazon, for the extra.
Amazon's not listening.
They might be.
Jeff Bezos descends.
He's moving right across the river. He's probably already got me bugged.
Packs you into a box. Oh boy. But anyway, the loose plot of Monster Hunter is like you go to the new world and join the research commission that researches by killing monsters. Ain't that real?
Dark Pokemon, let's go.
Kind of. And like, you know, there's monsters that are threatening. I think like dragons, elder dragons or whatever, that you have to take down because they're threatening like the ecosystem or whatever. I don't know. That's kind of the loose plot. That's the loose goal you've got. But entirely player created character, you can name them and everything.
Speaking of the ecosystem, which you mentioned several clauses ago now, so it doesn't really make sense as a thing to say, but speaking of the ecosystem, I think the AI for this game is, like, stellar and cool.
Yeah? Tell me about it.
So the monsters, like, interact with each other when you're not around. And you can, like, follow them around, and, like, you actually have to, like, track them. And they, like, nest and hunt, and they have different tendencies, and they're different amounts of territorial and stuff. Which is, I think, is just
cool.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Especially, like, you know, the game that I have played that is most analogous to this, other than, like, the Pokemon series, is probably Breath of the Wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is not even super analogous, but bear with me here. And all those guys act the same. I fight the same friggin' monsters over and over in that game, and they all act the same. And it's cool that they've gone to such an extent to, like, make it a world that just, like, happens.
I mean, if you're gonna put Hunter in your name, and hunting is gonna be your main game mechanic, you better make sure that hunting is fun, right?
I know, but, like, usually when you hear, when I hear Monster Hunter, I don't literally think of, like, I think of, like, fighting. I don't always think of, like, literally tracking and hunting my prey, right?
I always automatically think of Monster Rancher and then have to correct myself.
Man, don't even get me started. When is Monster Rancher? When are they going to revive Monster Rancher? They can't, because everything is digital now. But when are they going to revive Monster Rancher?
They would have to figure out some new way to do, like, the disc system.
Monster Rancher is so cool.
It really was.
What a great game. Ugh. Anyway, back to the game we're talking about. Okay, so here's my like question that I came up for about this game. You ready for my discussion cue?
I'm ready.
Okay. So Monster Hunter World came out in January. So it's coming out on a year of being out. And as is the requirement of a game that is partially online, and frankly of any game that anyone ever makes these days, Capcom has had to roll out fairly steadily more content, right? Monster Hunter World, to begin with, is already like a packed full of content game, right? This is a hundreds of hours kinds of game to play. Where you're tracking different monsters and your loot, and there's like some kind of like post-game, but they've added a bunch of other stuff, and they have like a Devil May Cry crossover and other monsters to fight. But I was reading an article that was like, you know, they really need to be doing more. Because people have finished it, even casual hunters feel like they've gotten most of the stuff, and they should be doing more to keep up with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to ask you about this model, and how much we should really be expecting of developers in a post-release capacity.
I mean, it kind of depends.
And it's all free, by the way. I do want to put that out there. This is all free DLC. No one is paying for this at this point.
I mean, if your online multiplayer is kind of the goal of your game, then some level of maintenance is to be expected, right? Like some level of updates for a certain amount of time. You'd have to, like, it doesn't have to worry because it's Capcom's best-selling game, but, you know, nobody's going to buy it now if they want to play online, right? Because there'll be a smaller and smaller player base. Yeah?
But you only need, it's not like a massively multiplayer game. You only need, 3 people to hunt with.
Yeah, I guess so.
And it's still completely playable
that is
in
a
single
difference
player.
too. So like, is your player base mostly like hanging out with their friends online, or is it competitive online, or like how many people play together at once? Like all these factors come together, and in my feeling, it's like if people are mostly like talking with strangers and playing with strangers, and there's competitive aspect to it, and there's lots and lots of people on it once, then you have to have a more continuous update schedule, right? Because that, like, the closer you get to a massively multiplayer game, the more stuff you have to provide over the longest period of time, right?
But generally, in that case, you're making your money on microtransactions.
I guess. Or esports.
Sure.
Because, like, Splatoon 2, for instance, for something that does not really have microtransactions, but has needed to be updated over, like, I think 2 years now it's been out, and they're still updating it, right? Because if they just leave it, then...
Well, did Nintendo develop Splatoon?
Yeah.
So they're using it as a way to leverage people into purchasing the internet package, too.
Yeah.
Which is, kind of a microtransaction.
Yeah. And, like, Super Smash Bros., I mean, they are going to have, like, a paid DLC pack, too, but that's a huge, like, esport thing. So they can make money off of it that way, too. It used to be that MMOs would have, like, a subscription-based payment system. But nobody wants to do that anymore. It used to be a really smart way because people would forget to cancel their subscription.
Yeah, I think that's such a more, like, smart in way of making money, but also just more appropriate for what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what I was thinking when I was thinking about this is, Monster Hunter is a $60 game. Maybe it's not even that much anymore, but it's a $60 game. And even before they released any bonus content, this is at least a 100-hour game. Right? Probably more, but at least. And that $60 game is the same price as the $60 game that you bought 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And not only is it already probably twice as full of content, if not more, than that $60 game that you bought 10 years ago, but also they've been expected to continue updating it over the course of an entire year. I just don't see how, as much as whatever, like, how much do I play online? Like, basically none. But as much as I find microtransactions kind of grating, someone needs to develop a model to support these expectations, because gamers are friggin' spoiled.
Yeah.
To say, I need to pay $60, and not only am I getting this gigantic, massive, beautiful game, but I want more. There's not enough. Like, can't you just move on? Can't you eventually just move on to a new game?
I mean, eventually you gotta, right? They can't keep supporting it forever, because eventually people will drop off and drop off and drop off, right?
But, like, why are they still supporting it, I guess, is my question. They've already made their money. They're not making any more money off of these people. Unless they're planning, which they probably are, unless they're planning to release some kind of a larger paid DLC package, and they just had to kind of keep people hooked.
I I mean, the more people talk about it, the more likely people are to buy it late. You know, you keep it relevant in the minds of the people, so that you can continue getting sales off of it until your next installment comes out.
That's true. That's true, I guess.
Like, you know, you don't just, like with any game, like you don't update the game's contents, but the marketing team doesn't stop working, right?
No, you're right, of course. It just seems like a lot of work that has to have gone into this. That
I'm sure that the team that works on updates is smaller than the team that worked on the original game.
No, for sure. I just wonder how the economics of it shake down. That's all.
I mean, you know, obviously people in the games industry, some people in the games industry aren't getting paid enough. And the $60 price tag isn't really feasible for many games anymore. And all this stuff. But, you know, I want my stuff.
Do you think that
gamer
with
inside me?
Do you think the new system, you know, when the next generation comes out in whatever, 2 years, 3 years?
2 years.
2 years.
Like I said, I think Sony's gonna announce a new console next year.
Okay. So when that new generation of consoles comes out, do you think that they'll take that as the impetus to bump the price up to like $80?
I don't know. I remember, speaking of consoles, and speaking of, you shouldn't be a console elitist, but I kind of am. I remember being a little smug when they announced the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, and the Xbox One was like $100 more expensive. Because I was like, just take that, Xbox. No offense to any Xbox players, really.
No offense, honestly.
Yeah, but I mean, even that was like a big deal, right? Because that meant the PlayStation was $100 cheaper than the Xbox, coming out around the same time, and that makes it so much more tempting to buy than the Xbox, right? So the first person who takes that step is playing a dangerous game. And that's why everybody's afraid to do it, I think.
Is it unethical of me to buy a $200 PS4?
No. It's not unethical. It's been out for this long. That's why it's cheaper. You know, like, gaming can be a cheap hobby if you want it to be. You just have to be a couple of years behind, like you are.
Yep. Word. Okay. Are you ready to try to mash these two games together? It's high pressure because they were both nominated for Game of the Year.
Oh, yeah. At the Game Awards?
Yeah.
Game Awards are just dumb.
What a dumb name.
They nominated Detroit Become Human for Best Direction. I was like,
Did you play the game?
Okay. It's like, there was like the whole story about how all of like Connor and Hank's scenes, not all of them, but a lot of them were like partially improvised by them.
Oh, wow. Well,
by the actors.
Only because they felt safe in the director's gaze.
Yeah, they had to fight him on a couple of them. They're like, no, that's great, leave that in. And David Cage was like, no, no, no. Or whatever. He's French.
That was offensive. Okay, so...
Je parle français. Ce n'est pas offensive.
Okay.
Offensive.
Let's stop this. It's time to mash these two games together. Are we hunting pigs?
No, not Paige.
I mean...
Is Paige hunting other pigs?
That's
dark.
Wrong.
Maybe you're like a photojournalist investigating monsters, and you research them like a normal person by taking photos of them instead of murdering
That's already
them.
sort of what happens in this game, though. You like learn more about them every time you see them. So all it is taking away the fun part.
But you're ethical this way. That's what we learn out of our games.
It could be like... I like the ethical version. I don't know where we're pulling that from in either of these games, but the ethics, sure. If you're like protecting the monsters from the monster hunters, and so you're monster hunter.
Interesting. I don't really know where we're pulling that from Beyond Good and Evil.
It's a government conspiracy. The government is turning a blind eye to these people poaching these endangered monsters, and you are the secret police, the vigilante, hunting the hunters. Here's my tagline. Hunter becomes the hunted.
That's pretty good. What about if the monsters are kind of like the doms and that they're attacking, and the monster hunters are kind of like the alpha, what's their name? The alpha
Sections.
dictatorship, the alpha section, in that they're pretending to kill the monsters and drive them off, right? And you are investigating the monster hunters to find out that they're actually letting the monsters continue to wreak havoc on the world.
But the twist is your father was a pig.
No!
You are part monster. Monster hunter of the monster hunters.
Yes! So it'd be Monster Hunter : Monster Hunter.
Yes. Exactly.
Monster Hunter squared, if you're fancy.
Yeah. That could work.
Yeah. So, like, as the monster hunters are, like, tracking the monsters, you, the monster hunter, the monster hunter, are tracking the movements of the monster hunter.
I think the way to say it would be the monster hunter.
Yes, the monster hunter. Burgermeister Burger.
Exactly.
So you track their movements as they track another person's movements.
Yes.
And you strike when they're about to strike.
Exactly.
Pachoo.
But you also have to earn the monster's trust, right? Because they have no way of distinguishing you. And so you do that by taking tasteful portraits of them.
You're their professional Instagram photographer.
You're rehabilitating their image.
Yes.
This is weird. We've created, like, PETA, the game. Even though I know that already exists.
But I mean, the monsters could still be evil. You could just be tricking the monsters into thinking you're on their side, and tricking the monster hunters to thinking that you're on their side.
But why are you
game.
defending the monsters?
You don't have to be, though. You just think that the monster hunters are also bad.
But why are you then killing the monster hunters?
Because they're bad.
But, like, why are they bad?
Because they're secretly, like I said, they're secretly letting the monsters go to continue terrorizing.
Right. So they're only killing them for their own, like, economic gain, and they're only defending, like, the rich people's area.
Yes, that's good.
Much like the Kardashians hiring their private firefighter in California.
And we would just like the public to know, there's no politics in this game. We weren't thinking anything political when we came up with this.
See? We're, like, leaving the rich to be eaten by animals.
We're basically game developers now.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe you do need to maybe the end of the game, though, is that you have to kill a monster to protect your village. And as it dies, It says, "My niece!" And then you look down and you see that you have had hooves the whole time.
What? No wonder it was a first-person game. Can't see your feet in those.
Exactly. Perfect.
That's pretty good. There you go.
Monster hunter. No, so we can't reveal the monster part. So it's just monster hunter : hunter. The hunters become the hunted.
That's good. That's great.
Look for it on the PS5.
Some real marketing potential here.
I think it's great. I think it's high quality. I think it would be good. It would be fun.
It would. It'd be fun.
And you could have an online multiplayer kind of it where you would actually hunt real, like you would have teams. Some people would be playing See, here would be the way we keep Monster Hunter World going. Is we'll just
you add the Monster Hunter monsters.
Exactly. It's a whole new element.
Hey there, hunters and monsters. Thanks for listening to our episode.
There's Pokemon. You're really in
We here welcome monsters, hunters, monster hunters, and monster hunters. So
No, it's monster. Oh no, it is that. You just pronounce
Yes.
it. You pronounce it in a way that doesn't make it clear.
monster hunters. You're all
Exactly.
welcome to listen to our podcast. So tell your friends about it. Subscribe on whatever podcasting service you're currently listening to this on, or another one if you don't like the one you're listening to it on. Leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts specifically is really helpful. Even if you don't listen to it on there, the review on there is very helpful. Follow us on social media at Talk This Podcast, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Check out our blog at talkthispodcast.com
/blog.
There's the Clickbait Boyfriend series where Clickbait Boyfriend is playing through Kingdom Hearts.
I think that I might need to get him Monster Hunter once he finishes Breath of the Wild. I think he would maybe dig that.
I'm already going to give you Horizon Zero Dawn, which is basically Breath of the Wild.
Interesting.
Just think about it. How many games do you need, Madelyn? How many games?
I don't know. How many games are there?
Also on our blog, there's Split Screen. We were watching Boys Over Flowers and My Hero Academia. So look forward to that.
And check out our... Did you already say YouTube? Check out our YouTube, Talk This Sisters. This week, Clickbait Boyfriend became a YouTube star.
Yeah, I saw it. Got a lot of views.
Yeah, right?
I commented on it.
It's our most viewed video of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's something people are searching for.
Yeah, I know.
Specifically, so.
I know.
Coming out this week will be the new Play This on The World Ends With You. Final remix / just The World Ends With You. Yeah.
All right, folks. Time to pick next week's games. Not next week's. 2 weeks' games.
Crap. I did the whole spiel without pulling up
Well, you're
my
pulling
fake
that up.
hats.
Next week, we'll have one of our side quest episodes where the two of us will actually be together to record it, and also nice and fat on Thanksgiving food. Not that Emma really likes Thanksgiving food, but I'll be nice and fat.
I don't. Oh, actually, is next week our 100th episode?
I don't know.
It might be. We'll have to look for that, because we're thinking about doing something special for our 100th episode.
Do you want me to try to count it right now, live on the air?
I mean, you could just go on Libsyn, and it tells you.
Okay, that's what I'll do. You have to talk about something while I look for this important announcement.
We are also starting this week, to put games back in our hat. So if you have any suggestions for games you'd like to talk about, or like us to talk about, let us know, either through hitting us up on social media or leaving a comment through our contact form on our website, and tell us what you'd like us to put in the hat. We've got 10 games at a time in there from now on. So yeah. That's definitely good to do.
Okay, so it's episode 49. Oh, but wait. How do I...
Just look at the number at the... go to previously published.
That's what I'm at.
And just look at the number at the bottom. 1 out of...
98. So next one will... Wait a minute, though.
Yes.
No, it's right. Okay, next time will be... We'll have our side quest first, but in 2 weeks, it will be Talk This Podcast 100th episode.
No, this is the 99th episode right now.
You're right. So next week... Help.
Basic math.
I'm a math tutor. Next week, and we'll be together. How exciting is that? Things to be thankful for. Next week is our 100th episode.
We're still going to figure out what we'll do for special for that. But yeah, it should be slightly different, at least, than our normal side quest.
Get ready for an exciting 100th episode next week.
And I am ready to pick our next games.
Pick 'em.
So, our old game is No More Heroes.
Nice. That's good for the Monster Hunter universe.
And our new game is Cuphead.
Nice. Oh man, that mashup will be good.
So look
brutally
forward
hard.
to that. Madelyn, do you want to sign us off?
You betcha. I hope that you get the side dishes that you want and that you have a wonderful, cozy, nice Thanksgiving.